Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9. Good night.
Good night, Malaysian 370.
Breaking news tonight, a Malaysia Airlines flight with 239 people on board, including 4 Americans, has gone missing.
From the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds."
Welcome to the live stream, everybody. Happy to have you guys here. Thank you very much for supporting me. My name, Ashton Forbes. This is my live stream show that I do. Now, tonight, guys, we have an old school live stream where we're going to dig through and actually do a little bit of research. And I think you're going to like it because it involves a physicist and engineer that we have talked about. Now, you may say, why are you wearing the glasses, Ashton? And yes, please hit the like and subscribe. I appreciate it. Helps me to be able to do this research. Well, it turns out the guy we're talking about today is Friedwardt Winterberg. We saw that he wrote negative mass propulsion paper for the DIRDs. And it turns out who passed without us ever knowing about him. So it's probably not his anniversary of his funeral or anything like that, but I don't know when it was. It's not on his Wikipedia page unless somebody recently updated it. So today is our funeral for Dr. Winterberg. Too close. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Now, before we get into all of that, and it is going to be good, I can already tell. I want to take a quick look and see if there's anything. There hasn't really been many updates in this saga around the Cybertruck guy. Oh, there was one update. Okay, so let's play this real quick. Trump gets asked about the drones. We're going to do a couple little current events things because I don't think our streams are going to be too long tonight. Even though every single time I say that, I'm wrong. This will be the exception.
What happened to drones?
Well, you said that you knew you thought the government knew what was happening with these drones over New Jersey. There were some by Bedminster.
I don't know. They're over Bedminster a lot, so I can imagine. Hey, I'm going to give you a report on drones about one day into the administration, because I think it's ridiculous that they're not telling you about what's going on with the drones. And it's not only with me. Glenn was telling me today that in Virginia, they have drones all over the place too, and nobody's reporting it. I don't know why they're not. Do you want to say something about that?
Just one quick comment, which is we are home to the largest naval base in the world in Quantico, and we house a lot of the SEAL teams and have a huge national security infrastructure. And now for 2 years running, we have had drone incursion over secure airspace, and we still don't know why. And I think that's absolutely unacceptable. And I think President Trump and the new leadership come.
Is the audio only bad with my microphone, or is it bad when Trump was speaking there as well? Okay. Some people are saying the audio is cutting in and out. I went and I checked everything to see. Okay. Let me know if there's major stuff, but it's basically impossible to troubleshoot. I checked all the cords just a second ago. Okay, so basically Trump is saying there that he's going to figure this all out. Now, guys, here's
coming in. I think we'll work diligently to understand.
I hate that this auto plays in the background. Okay. The main takeaway of this drone situation, here's the main takeaway. Pay attention. The main takeaway of the drone situation is the United States knows what they are, and they knew where they were coming from as well. Okay, so that's the main takeaway. Do we know that it was China or us or whatever? Not really. Most likely it was U.S. or private military contractors, something like that. And yes, we do have gravitic drone technology. The last live stream if you want to understand the history of this gravitic drone technology, but we're also going to kind of touch on it today because Winterberg has all of the prerequisites to be like the OG of this kind of technology. So Trump comes in and he says, I will figure it out right away. And Trump also said he knows they know what it is. Now, does that mean they're going to tell us what these drones are? No, I don't think so. I don't think so, guys. Don't get your hopes up. It's not as simple as Trump gets to decide. If it is anti-gravity drones, Trump's not going to be able to come out and say that. Now, imagine if he did. Imagine if he did. Wow. If Trump came out and was like, it's anti-gravity drones, I'm going to be doing the Macarena. I'll be doing the Macarena and we'll be celebrating. Okay, let me see what else we got here. Hold on. Cheers, by the way. Happy Friday, guys. TGIF. There's another thing on my profile if you want to hear me talking about like the history of this technology, but the main takeaway is that we've been researching this technology and turns out there's a bunch of people who've been on the 0 point energy bandwagon for many decades. At this point, we're just trying to figure out like the exact year and how far back it goes, but at least the 80s. Probably the 70s, maybe the 60s, and even the 50s. It goes really far back. Let me hit some of these donations. Jeff, thank you very much, brother. 1, 2, 3. Toth, Blaze It 420. It'd be easy to do the Snoop Dogg overlay over me now with the glasses on already. Okay, thank you. We fixed the audio, I think. And then, but who made this? Thank you for the donation anyway. And Dragonfly, UFO Research Channel, UFO Compilation 1. Check out 2410, multiple angles. Also the Metapod. Yeah, the Metapod's interesting too, but I don't know what any of that stuff is. We're just spoiled at this point. We're spoiled at this point because we've got like already got the best videos ever, which by the way, it's like, here you go. Here's the best videos ever. Not even close. This is what we want to know about the most right here. The plane teleporting out of the sky. How is this possible? Skullhide. I'm not really a crypto guy, but I bet a ZPE token. Yeah, it's honestly not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea. ZPE to replace Bitcoin. So the big mystery of this video, and probably one of the most authentic aspects, is these orbs spinning around the plane. You can also see them spinning as well. Now the question is, are they spinning or is it just the inside of them spinning? I mean, you can just literally see them spinning on their axis. It's crazy to watch. And they're perfect. It's not like they're moving off of the center line at all. These are like umbrella shapes are like perfect. The people that know this is real and let this leak, they must be just sweating balls. You got to just be sweating balls because you're not just giving away that we have like teleportation tech. You're giving away cold fusion here. You're giving away that we know how to make cold fusion work, but well beyond what, like, nobody would have expected this before 2050. That's how much technology we got, minimum, like minimum. Even today, it's like 25 years from now, forget it. Like, we're talking, you figured out cold fusion. You've also figured out a way to stabilize the plasma, but you've stabilized it with like magnetic or inertial confinement. Because we're not using, there's no structure in plasma. And we're not using hot fusion because the temperature of these balls of plasma is ambient. It's room temperature. It's background temperature. And then somehow we figured out how to navigate them in three-dimensional space. And we just jam them together to just obliterate something or teleport it. Best videos ever. It's not close, guys. So, one more donation. I'm curious if NASA NASA if anti-gravity tech to reach the moon. My fun conspiracy on that, now that I'm a conspiracy guy apparently, is that if we have this anti-gravity tech, we would never risk sending human beings to the moon. We don't need to. Just send up a drone up there to go take pictures. Why have a person go up there? Having a person go up there is just hubris. So to me, that's the real answer. Is like we didn't lose the technology to go back to the moon. Are you kidding me? No. Currently, I lean on we did go back and we deemed it too dangerous to keep going back because our technology is too good. And so, we're just stupid, basically. We're dumb. We're being fooled by people that have obviously superior technology than what they what they pretend to have. One more by Jeff Phoenix. New engineer's personal intro. Sent Discord. Blessed. Thank you. Appreciate it, Jeff. Okay, let's just dig right into this, guys. I don't want to waste any more time. So Friedwardt Winterberg. Man, it's so hard to say his first name. Friedwardt Winterberg. Friedwardt Winterberg. So let's just go straight to. Let's close out of this. Also, quick shout outs, guys. If you haven't watched my interview with Professor Simon Holland, quite a lot of views. I replied to a bunch of other questions in the comments as well. And what was the other interview I was just on? I don't know. I've got one coming out as well with Steven of UAP Disclosure. Crap. Steven Diener. Anyway, check his stuff out as well. So I'm going to start here with something a little bit different. We're going to start with the end of this one video. We're going to do our best not to get copyright striked here. We'll do it like this. So that's Tim Ventura and that's Jared Yates. I don't know, whatever. And these guys basically went to Winterberg's house and started digging through his stuff. Like, they got permission, of course. I'm just saying it in a very dramatic way. So they were strifling through his stuff, digging through his stuff, snooping around his house, and they found all these secret documents. Just kidding. But they did find actual, notes of him and meticulous notes. So basically everything you see on the right up there, that's all stuff that's like Winterberg's detailed notes of all of his research. So here's a quick intro to Winterberg.
Stuff they're working through. So again, at the risk of sounding incredibly wishy-washy, the better part of civilization at this point, we just need to sit the entire planet down for therapy, because I think, one of the things that I see is our interactions with China and Russia and the rhetoric that's used and things like that. It's a thing, right? But then at the same time, there's a part of me that wonders, can we do this better?
I just found a page where it's Dr. Winterberg saying like a 2-page biography on his life. And I think this was up until the mid 60s. And so this is kind of what I've been looking for, is like that timeline on where was he, who was he working for, at what time. And so for here, it's saying that from 55 to 59, he was a leader at a research reactor in Hamburg, Germany. Mm. And so then he went from being a reactor researcher in Germany over to here, and he worked for the Case Research Institute from 59 until 63. And then he went from the Case Research Institute over to Case Institute of Technology in Cleveland, Ohio. And then in 63, he became the associate professor of physics in Desert Research Institute.
And they were the SDI involved company.
Yes, that's the very strongly SDI one, but this is way pre-SDI in 63, right? They were already working on a lot of other good nuclear stuff and fusion stuff, a lot of plasma stuff, right? I think, once again, he was rubbing shoulders with Teller. He was working with Los Alamos. He was working with Berkeley a lot. He was working with the U.S. Air Force. He was working with Boeing. I found a lot of correspondences in here with all the different people and groups he's been working with. The main thing that he was working for in these early years for Desert Research Institute was magnetofluid dynamics and plasma physics.
Okay, and they were.
Ooh, magnetohydrodynamics, right? Okay. I'm going to drop truth bombs on you throughout this, okay? Like, here's the thing. If you don't know the secret sauce, then what he just said means nothing to you. You just think like, okay, cool. He was some kind of guy that was connected to Edward Teller and a lot of people like Oppenheimer, people that were connected to the Manhattan Project. He learned under Werner Heisenberg, the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. That was his teacher. And he was a project paperclip scientist that we brought over that was already working on a fusion reactor before we brought him over. So we decided that he was smart and we needed to steal him from Germany. We gave him the option of coming to America. Kind of like, hey, why don't you come to America? Or, you know, something bad will happen to you. Like anytime we decide, whenever we feel it, if you don't come to America, something bad's going to happen to you and your family and everything you care about. That's basically the choice we gave him. If I'm going to, I mean, I'm just speculating here, but we've done some evil stuff. So most people just get the gist. You don't really have to threaten them overtly. Like, okay, you're coming to America now. So he probably understood a lot about this. Now, magnetohydrodynamics is basically understanding the flow of magnetic fields while things are spinning and moving around. The idea and the connection to plasma physics is you're trying to figure out how do you stabilize the plasma. That's what they're all trying to do. They're all trying to figure out how do you ignite the plasma for a fusion reaction, and how do you stabilize it? Now, already, just from hearing what I just heard, I listened to this earlier, I knew for sure this guy's going to be connected to stabilizing plasma. Just already knew just from what they said about him. And that's because if you've been watching me, then you know that as well. Because we've been looking into all these topics. What is magnetohydrodynamics? You know, it's connected to this UFO stuff, and it's connected because they're using magnetic fields for like inertial confinement for fusion, which is how Salvatore Pais's patent works as well. And they've been using it for quote unquote anti-gravity. And if you understand that space is not empty, then magnetohydrodynamics makes perfect sense, especially if you understand all the energy around us is electromagnetic in nature. So the plasma physics, then, of course, I would never have thought plasma physics was important. But then we find out that there are, like Tesla was right. He said energy, frequency, and vibration. Energy, frequency, vibration. Frequency and vibration actually do matter. They really do matter. Because you need to think of that energy, the 0 point energy, as jiggling around at a certain frequency. Like an ocean of water. Think of it as a superfluid. And it's just, everything's connected, jiggling around. So you can actually tap into it or interact with it, let's say, if you find a frequency that, let's call it, is resonant with the 0 point energy. If you can figure that out, then you can kind of, like Sal would say, tap at it until you break through. And what are you really doing when you're tapping at it, breaking through? Pulling energy out. Pulling energy out, making a hole in the ether. So this is the next part. So now that we've heard this Winterberg and what he's studied, already sure, okay, this is an interesting guy. Let's learn more about him. His credentials are unimpeachable, except for the fact that it's kind of interesting he went and like worked for kind of small schools. You would think a guy like this could go work at like, you know, an Ivy League school. But he's like, nah, I'm going to go work for, what were the names? Associate professor at the Desert Research Institute. Is the Desert Research Institute just like a cover for some government operations? Never heard of it. The Case Institute of Technology. The first one, okay, maybe. The second one, I'm like, bro, what? And also, he was not only connected to people like Edward Teller, but he also said, who has he worked for? Los Alamos and Boeing. Okay. Okay, so you were working for Boeing before they went full DEI, before pieces started falling off the airplanes, and you worked for Los Alamos. Now I'm really interested in what you've been up to. So let's go somewhere around here. Same interview.
Something called the Case Institute over in Ohio.
Okay.
He was working for them. That's the position he took. And then the Rand Corporation, he got in with the Rand Corporation. But from what I can tell so far, he wasn't able to get anything above a secret level.
Yo, if you don't know about Rand Corporation, it's basically like Hydra in like the Marvel universe, but like in real life. Like some of these private military contractors and like secret companies, like Battelle Institute's probably another one you're not familiar with. They're basically just doing evil stuff, but like, you know, actually, you know what? I shouldn't say that because I don't want to get like slandered. Everything I'm saying should be considered a joke. So basically they're experimenting on people, turning them into hybrids, like, you know, the stuff that Alex Jones says. They're doing Alex Jones stuff.
Clearance, which you're not going to get right into the program unless it. But then again, he was working on nuclear stuff, and a lot of the nuclear stuff he had was at like Q level clearance stuff.
Yeah.
So I think he got it at some point, but I've yet to find when he went from the secret clearance in 1960.
So also we know he got a clearance in 1960. So you can actually just like figure out about like all of these people. And then here's the thing. We don't know when he got his Q clearance, but we know he got it. But I mean, maybe the 60s probably, right? So we're dealing with a guy that had a lot of high-level clearances.
To the super top secret clearances where he might have been eligible for it.
So I'm in a weird way, I'm almost going kind of a different direction about this. The potential UFO connection, or I would say the likely UFO connection, is really interesting. I mean, he was on the board, as you said, he was on the board of QFON. QFOS.
The Center for UFO Studies.
He has stacks and stacks of UFO books. He has copies of, I think, the Truman Memo, right, from 1947. So he has a lot of that classic stuff, you know. So he was very, very much into UFOs. That was a part of his life. That was an interest area for him. So that this was someone who had knowledge in that area. He had interest in that area. He also had a lot of crossover interest. And this is something that I think needs more recognition. UFOs connect to SETI. They connect to propulsion systems. They connect to larger ideas about extraterrestrial life. He has documents about those. And it seems like that's something that's being overlooked in the 21st century.
So, wow. That was a curveball I did not expect in this interview. Tim Ventura just throws out there, oh, he's got a bunch of stuff about UFOs. And we're not going to play the next part, but basically they also say, like, being into UFOs as a physicist and engineer was extremely taboo up until relatively recently. And even now it's taboo. So the fact that he was interested in UFOs is very, very interesting. Because we're talking about, if you've just joined here, we're talking about Friedwardt Winterberg, the topic of today's live stream, the main man. Now, it's also, this guy was given praise and said that, like, I don't know if it was by Teller or by one of the other Manhattan Project scientists, that basically Winterberg was one of the guys, the unsung heroes that nobody knows about. That people should know, more people should know about him, basically. And after I looked at his stuff, I realized there's a very strong possibility, yes, that if we have been reverse engineering something, this guy saw it. Very, very, very strong possibility. And you might say, Ashton, how could you know that? How could you know that after just like, you know, one live stream or whatever with him? Like, how could you know all that? And you'd be right to be skeptical, but at the same time, my intuition has been spot on. And this here is a list of something called the DIRDs, the Defense Intelligence Reference Documents. These documents were classified, got unclassified, except for one of them. Hal Puthoff is the one that issued these or got these like basically commissioned through the Defense Intelligence Agency. And there's Winterberg right there. There's Winterberg right there. And in fact, he's on here twice. He wrote 2 of them. He also wrote the negative mass propulsion one down here at the bottom. Winterberg again. Winterberg wrote 2 of them. So this means he knew Hal Puthoff. And it also means that Hal Puthoff trusted him to write like next generation scientific papers, multiple next generation scientific papers. So yeah, so for people that are like, WTF, well, here you go. Welcome to the party. Welcome to the party. Another thing I want to point out is everybody's wondering, hey, if we have this advanced technology, where are the scientists and whistleblowers or whatever? Like, welcome to the live stream. This is what we do. This is where you're at. You're hearing them. You're reading about them. You're learning about them right now. Some of them are still alive. These are guys that went to their grave, never revealed what they knew. Look at it like that. Went to their grave, never revealed the secrets. Bro, these people are from another culture, another generation compared to where we're at right now. And yes, we've nailed one right here. Friedwardt Winterberg. Just remember Winterberg. That's good enough. Checks every single box to be a Black Project engineer. Oh, and by the way, we were mentioning as we were digging into the magnetohydrodynamics and plasma that I was going to say, or maybe I did say, that it wouldn't surprise me to find out that he was researching ways to stabilize plasma. Well, somebody from the Discord found one of his papers. Here it is. Thermonuclear dynamo inside an Alphen black hole. Okay. Wait for it. I got to get to the chat GPT description, guys, because I'll be real. I haven't had time to read through it. So hopefully this is accurate. You guys have been flying. Okay, here we go. So this paper suggests using rapid plasma rotation achieved with magnetic waves and specific configurations to exceed Alphen velocities and stabilize the plasma. The configuration ensures stability by aligning magnetic and fluid flow forces using concepts like potential vortices and magnetic mirrors to maintain control over the plasma. Well, that sounds dope. Let me read the second part. If successful, this concept could advance our understanding of plasma dynamics and magnetic field generation with implications for both scientific research and practical applications in energy generation. That's the ChatGPT super short version of this paper right here. So, yep, turns out we do have a guy that was working on stabilizing plasma right here. And he was probably connected to some UFO stuff as well. So now dots are connecting pretty fast. Chat. So next thing is, and we got a lot because I have a feeling, I honestly don't even know. There could be unknown Yahtzees that are going to happen in this. So this part, they talk about fusion.
That where you don't have to use that explosion. You can use centrifugal forces and strong fields and all these crazy expensive things. Normally you need a big like micronuclear explosion to start fusion processes. And that's a no-go for a lot of reasons, right?
Yeah.
But he figured out ways around that where you don't have to use that explosion. You can use centrifugal forces and strong fields and all these other things instead of the explosion. And all of that progress that he made, that he like pioneered, never got to see the light of day during his lifetime because it was classified. And that classification resulted in progress from the 70s and 80s still not getting declassified until now. Like, it's still not fully declassified.
Bruh, I mean, okay. If your spider sense is not going off right now, your Will Robinson danger is not going off right now. You have not been watching me enough. Because now we found a guy who, what I just heard there was that I'm going to translate it for you guys. He basically just said Winterberg was saying that hot fusion was a scam and we were going to achieve cold fusion through a clever use of magnetic fields. Okay. Now I'm starting to see the hot fusion versus cold fusion. Hot fusion might literally be a psyop. I can't believe I'm saying this, but we've come to it. Hot fusion might be a psyop to just make people think that temperature, we've got to cause some thermonuclear reaction to happen within the donut to make the fusion occur. Nah, man. We should always have been using like magnetic fields. And this is exactly what Salvatore Pais's fusion patent does. His Navy fusion patent, I'm pretty sure it's approved. It uses counter-rotating magnetic fields confined to like a tube and jams them together. I mean, it seems like a smart way to do it to me. I'm not a PhD physicist, but this goes to show that Winterberg was also trying to do it different ways. So when I start seeing all my favorite scientists all saying the same things, start getting kind of excited. Exactly. Yahtzee, chat. Yahtzee.
I think it slowly started getting there around 2000, 2010. So he did get to see some of it progress there, but in his mind, fusion would have already been achieved. We would have already gotten fusion by 2020. That was like the latest he figured it was going to happen for the longest time.
Yeah.
And he had good reason to be frustrated with that secrecy because without fusion, the Earth is doomed.
Yeah, and not just fusion for energy, but fusion for spacecraft. And he'd written about that. He wrote about fusion-powered spacecraft. The other thing that he...
Okay, well, we're definitely going to have to check out... Dude, come on, Mark, please. Mark, I appreciate it, but that's too much, brother. Way too much. What? Thank you, man, but I need you, please do not send me this much money. But thank you very much. I mean... Obviously, I thank you. YouTube thanks you as well for their 30% or whatever. Thank you very much, Mark. Wow. You were threatened with malware ransomware. Yeah, people are probably going to target you for donating to me, to be perfectly honest with you. But thank you very much, man. Appreciate it. Bro, I mean, but seriously, bro, please don't donate that much. I didn't even know it went that high. I thought you guys said it was 300 was the max. Now you got to force me to change it. Even though I couldn't figure out where I had to change it, I guess I'll find out. Okay, man. Well, thank you very much. Jesus. Okay. Well, I guess I'll just do the other ones real quick as well. Lockheed Martin stakeholders are stunned and puzzled by the announcement that they will be diverting all their best minds to creating a realistic excursion. Thank you, Brady. Appreciate you, Brady Stewart. Nice of you. What about Ning Lee's work? Yeah, she never left America. Yeah, she probably just got pulled in by Lockheed Martin. It's like we're seeing a trend here. Scientists are getting sucked in. I'm starting to wonder if Salvatore Pais is living here under his own power or if he's like just forced to live in this country. How crazy would it be to find out that Salvatore Pais is like America's endangered like engineer? That would actually be like maybe too much for me. If that turned out to be the case, I would just be like, okay, I don't know if I'm on the side of good anymore, guys. Might just be on the side of evil now. If evil means stopping that. Anyway, so that's the truth. And thank you again, Mark. I mean, geez, man. Jeez. Thank you. Appreciate it. I think we might be doing that, though.
He has a lot of documents on is new innovations in theoretical physics. And so he was applying his knowledge of nuclear physics to theoretical physics. There was quantum gravity, a lot of stuff there. And it's not just his, he was building off of the ideas of other people, right? So he has stacks of photocopies from various physicists in emerging areas, and so you're talking about black hole research, and he has an entire box that's about modern concepts of Aether theory, right? So, again, that's.
I mean, what more do you want, chat? Black holes and Aether theory, and also Tim Ventura, please say it correctly. Aether theory? Where are we at? What is that accent? No Aether theory. Aether theory. Aether. A-E-T-H-E-R. Aether theory. Aether. What is this? These people, man. Primitives, man. Primitives. They got to learn the ways. Aether. Okay. I always A-E-T-H-E-R. If you're not A-E-T-H-E-R, you're just basically like, if you spell E-T-H-E-R, it's just like being like a commoner or like a peasant born in like the back alleys. Have a little bit of class and dignity for yourself, okay? A-E-T-H-E-R.
That's something that.
Okay, so, but also, I mean, now he's digging into Aether theory.
We've seen Aether has been trying to come back into the spotlight for 80 years now, right? And there's no great way for people to introduce that.
Speaking of, here's his book, The Planck Aether Hypothesis.
Planck Aether Hypothesis, yeah. So hold that up.
Hold that up.
And he has.
I mean, that's how you hold it up to the camera? That's how you hold up a book to the camera? Jared Yates, please, sir.
Many, many copies of this book. And
come on, bro. Okay, well, we tried. We tried to get the book up here. That was what I was going for here, but okay, whatever. There it is. The Planck Aether Hypothesis. This was the big money shot. Boom. He wrote a whole book about the ether being real. Why? Every single black project engineer all believes the ether is real. It's gotten to just a ridiculous point at this point. Like, they all just believe there's an ether 0-point energy that's out there. They all believe in that. All of them. This is a whole book about how it's the super force, basically. The same thing that Salvatore Pais has been saying. They've all been saying the same stuff. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
And he has.
There it is.
Many, many copies of this book.
The Secret of the Universe. It says right there, is the secret of the universe something or other, right there at the top. Okay, let's dig into one of the next videos. That was cool. That was cool. Next video. Because we got more, chat. So next one, we're going to watch this one literally of him. Well, I guess it's audio of him. I don't know. Did he just not have any videos? If anybody can find videos, put them in our Discord.
Kelvin pronounced as the clouds of physics. First, the failure of the Michelson-Morley experiment to detect an ether wind, and second, the violation of the classical mechanical equipartition theorem in statistical thermodynamics. And he believed that the removal of these clouds would bring physics to an end. But as we know today, the removal of these clouds led to the two great breakthroughs in modern physics, the theory of relativity and quantum mechanics. Now, towards the end of the 20th century, more clouds of physics became apparent. First, there is the riddle of quantum gravity. Second, the superluminal quantum correlations. 3, the small cosmological constant. 4, furthermore, the riddle of dark energy.
Okay, so he's giving us a history of physics. Let's just get past that, get to the juice.
At first glance, Einstein's conjectures that there are more than 3 dimensions of the followers of these stations.
Boy, this accent's going to be hard to track.
where the subtraction of two infinities set equal to the value of observed quantity works. This renormalization trick does not work for quantum gravity. While for quantum gravity the problem is mathematical, it is for the superluminal quantum correlations, EPR experiment, physical. About these problems, countless papers and books have been written, making all sorts of philosophical conjectures. With the most outlandish one, the many worlds interpretation. For the reason for the failure to find a reasonable explanation for these superluminal connections can be expressed by the formula. Einstein cannot be wrong, and there are no superluminal connections. But the experiments taken at face value clearly demonstrate the existence of such superluminal connections.
Okay, that actually was really smart. If you were struggling, what I'm going to tell you is he just talked to the many worlds hypothesis. Okay, so what he's saying is that if I have my 2 points, quantum mechanics is saying that we can have quantum tunneling, quantum teleportation, non-locality. We can have this idea of these 2 points are connected by a very long distance that's further than light can travel. Not further than light can travel, but further than can travel in a minute, 2 minutes, whatever. Basically, faster than light communication and quantum entanglement between these 2 points. Now, one of the explanations for that is the many worlds hypothesis. Well, what if there's many universes? What if there's a bunch of different timelines and they're all interacting with one another? Sure, it's a possibility. I used to like it, but I don't like it as much anymore. I want to feel special. Don't you want to feel special, chat? If you want to feel special, then this is all there is. What we're in right now is all there is. You can't go rewrite the timeline. The timeline's always progressing forward from our biological perspective. You maybe can reverse your aging process, but the timeline of the universe is always moving forward. Okay, but that's interesting because now, okay, what's your, let's listen to more of his interpretation.
The easiest way to explain the superluminal connections is that there is an ether. That's also taken by Bell position.
Okay, the easy way to explain, he says, is there's an ether. There is an ether. And I couldn't understand the rest of what he said, but it doesn't matter. There's an ether of energy. That's the way to explain these connections. The way you explain these connections is there is no distance between these points. It's just a projection. They're actually connected in the same spot. We are, I don't know, an infolded or outfolded reality from this energy source that's all around us. An analogy would be we are like on a microchip on a computer that's running a projection of our reality. It's like that. Sounds weird. You know what? Just is what it is. Our universe is a weird place.
Of course, it would be the cause of the relativistic effects on implication general relativity. Of course, a position taken before Einstein by Lorentz and Poincaré. Which this ether, of course, what then is, can be detected? This is another question, and I've also written a paper about it, how we might perhaps be able to detect it. Permits the transmission of superluminal signals, and so on. So
he says we might not be able to easily detect it, and it permits the ability of superluminal signals, faster than light communication. Because if we have non-local effects, then obviously you can have instantaneous transmission of information. Now I can make Morse code, and now I can communicate with people. Boom.
Mysteries of 21st century physics, non-baryonic cold dark matter and the dark energy making up 70% of the physical universe also point in the direction for the existence of an ether we call today the vacuum. Not the 10 to the 500 possible vacuum states of string theory, or I understand, according to the latest count, 10 to the 100,000 possible vacuum states. Now here,
I couldn't really understand all that, but I'm pretty sure he says that the ether can explain dark energy. I'm pretty sure that's what he said. I'm just going to translate into, Ashtonese for you.
Hypothesis, and the hypothesis somehow was entertained before even Schrödinger came up with his famous Zitterbewegung paper by two Polish physicists.
He just mentioned Schwinger. Was it Schwinger? Coming up with the Zitterbewegung paper. Wait, did Schwinger come with the Zitterbewegung paper? Hold on.
Now here, the hypothesis, and the hypothesis somehow was entertained before even Schrödinger came up with his famous Zitterbewegung paper by two.
Zitterbewegung paper. Wait, did Schwinger didn't come up with it, did he? Wow. Wait, did Schwinger come up with the Zitterbewegung, chat? You guys fact check that for me. You know what? Until somebody fact checks me, Julian Schwinger came up with the Zitterbewegung. Now, the Zitterbewegung, why is that important? I just told you guys that energy is vibrating. That's the Zitterbewegung. Boom, there you go. Boom. The energy is vibrating. The vibration is Zitterbewegung. Oh, Schrödinger. Okay, Schrödinger. Schrödinger came up with the Zitterbewegung. Thank you. I knew it wasn't Schwinger. Schrödinger, I think. Anyway, whatever.
Polish physicists.
I can't understand anything.
Von Matheson,
Well,
1937.
Is that racist?
And then
No.
von Weissenhoff, 1958.
He's white. It's not.
That is a question, are there maybe besides positive also negative masses in the vacuum? You know, I mean, a solid object.
Well, he said something about negative masses in the vacuum.
It's very highly space neutral. Positive and negative charges neutralized to a very high degree. So it appears also that the reality of space is also a compensation of something positive with something negative. Also, Sakharov was speculating about that. He called it hypothetical ghost particles.
Okay. Now I love him. He just mentioned Sakharov. Okay, guys. Sakharov. I've been saying Sakharov, 1967. Sakharov realized that 0-point energy was the answer. Now he's mentioning something about ghost particles. They're basically saying they're getting back to the ether. That's what's happening. They're getting back to realizing that the ether is real. He also mentioned negative energy. I'm pretty sure what he was saying about negative energy is that this energy out there is a negative energy state. It's in a negative energy state. Like Dirac hole theory.
Now that brings me directly to Einstein's last query. Okay, now Einstein asked himself the following question. General relativity is a nonlinear theory. Therefore, can I obtain some like a quantum mechanical behavior for a singularity of the field equation Rik equals 0, which then would somehow simulate what I observe for a quantum mechanical particle, which is the Zitterbewegung. And then, okay, the equation of the vacuum field equation Rik equals 0. Do I need then, in addition to that equation, that the trajectory of a particle follows a geodesic line? Okay. Then he worked together with a friend of him, Grommer, in Berlin. That was a paper 1927 by Einstein and Grommer, forgotten almost. And he came to the conclusion, it is not possible. What was conjectured that quantum mechanical behavior is this kind of jiggling motion, Zitterbewegung. General relativity could not reproduce that. However, and here comes something very important. Einstein and Grommer had to make an assumption, a very important assumption. They had to assume that the singularity had the property of a mass pole, not of a mass dipole or of a mass multipole. But if you had a mass dipole, as von Weissenhoff, and after him, von Weissenhoff was Matheson, 1937, and von Weissenhoff later showed. If you make that assumption, then you obtain the Zitterbewegung, and not only that, you can derive with it, as was later shown by Hödel and Papapetro, you can derive even Dirac equation. You must assume there are besides positive masses, negative masses in the universe. How many? 2 minutes. Okay, now the question is, how could that perhaps be explained?
Okay. I think he's going to help him explain it here in a second, but basically he's saying that you can't model the universe with general relativity unless you have magnetic monopoles, singularities, black hole. Now I'm starting to think that black holes might not be what we thought they were. And really, we're just dealing with dipole is just like a positive or a positive and negative north or south pole, dipole. So a monopole is just a north, just a south, just a positive or just a negative. The universe works in positives and negatives. Simple as that. So what Winterberg's saying here is that we have to have negative mass. Negative energy must be possible. The universe needs it to make sense.
So now apart string, so everybody has string theory. So I thought myself, well, we must guess what could be the vacuum. The vacuum consists of a mixture of positive and negative mass particles, where the Planck mass particles interact over the Planck length with the Planck force. No long-range forces like Leibniz monads. The monads have no windows, only short-range forces are permitted. Then such interaction, and of course the interaction between the positive and negative Planck mass particles must be attractive and with those of equal sign repulsive, but that violates momentum conservation. It fluctuates, but not energy conservation. But exactly what you expect from the uncertainty principle. Between positive and negative mass particles fluctuate against each other, and you get Heisenberg's principle already at this Planck mass plasma. I call it also plasma. So the Planck mass plasma then produces like fluid, vortices, vortex filaments, and all this kind of stuff, waves, already Thomson had shown, Kelvin, you can, with such a vortex model, you can obtain electromagnetic waves as a mechanical wave. You can also obtain Einstein's gravitational waves as well.
So he's saying here that, boy, translating this isn't easy. The virtual particles, the positive, negative virtual particles, they're constantly sifting throughout this ether of energy that's out there. And this ether of energy can also explain stuff like gravitational waves and these electromagnetic waves that are flowing through the medium of this ether of energy that's around us all the time. There you go. So now, I'm 100% sure this guy's on board. He understands the game plan, so to speak.
Now, the final question, I would like, if I have 1 minute more time, how can we perhaps obtain some evidence for the existence of such a vacuum, or Planck ether, I call it? And that is, remember, the 0-point energy of the vacuum goes with the key k to the 3 spectrum. The higher the wave number is, the higher is the energy. But the turbulent spectrum goes, according to Kolmogorov, with k to the minus 5/3. Now, could it not be possible that for very large distances, where the turbulent, there is a turbulent component in the vacuum energy, will get larger than the 0-point energy, that from that distance on, the correlations break? Now, the aspect experiment was done over 10 meters. Other people claim they have made an experiment.
Whoa, chat. Can someone translate that? That felt very, very important. And I literally can't understand like 1 out of every 3 words the guy's saying. It sounded like he was saying something about 0-point energy, can explain it, but then something significant about the 0-point energy that we have to know about how to break through to the ether. Turbulent ZB? Yeah, I mean, oh, Jesus. I don't know. Yeah, maybe I'll slow down. Let me slow it down. And I'm going to, hold on. I got my heater on. It's harder here. Just like a peasant out here with the wrong lights on. Okay, let's see if we can listen to that again. Oh yeah, here we go. 0-point energy. Okay.
And that is, remember, the 0-point energy of the vacuum goes with the key k to the 3 spectrum. The higher the wave number is, the higher is the energy. But the turbulent spectrum goes, according to Kolmogorov, with k to the minus 5/3. Now, could it not be possible that for very large distances, where the turbulent, there is a turbulent component in the vacuum energy, will get larger than the 0-point energy, that from that distance on, the correlations break? Now, the aspect experiment was done over 10 meters. Other people claim they have made an experiment under Lake Geneva in over 10 kilometers. We must go into space and repeat that experiment over 100,000 kilometers. I had published a paper and suggested, depending on the intensity of this conjectured vacuum turbulence, the correlation should lead to a breakdown. That would, of course, mean quantum mechanics is, again, only a model. We must always remember, all our theories are really only models, and they may eventually break down. Thank you so very much.
Okay, so it sounded like what he was getting at was that there's some kind of turbulence that we can do to the ether that will allow it to amplify energy. That's what it sounded like to me. Yeah, some kind of turbulence. And he was talking about like teleportation of energy as well. Like that's what he's talking about, teleportation of energy over long distances using this turbulence. So basically, you've got this Zitribugon. Well, what if you just amplify it? Then can I transmit energy over a long distance? And the answer is going to be yes. Even though it sounds crazy, why is the answer going to be yes? This is why the answer is going to be yes. This is why. Because this is what they're doing right here. He's explaining what they're doing right here. Just spoiler alert. There you go. Tom Bearden was right. Some breakaway civilization douchebags on this planet have figured out how they can manipulate the ether. They probably stole Winterberg's work as well, if I'm just being honest. Probably stole his work. Probably paid him nothing compared to the level of this technology. The sad part is this technology was probably cheap, chat. It was probably cheap. Like, technology is actually cheap. Like, you just tell some guy that he's coming to America and now he's going to make some orbs for you. Okay, we've got another video. This one's titled Friedwardt Winterberg and the TR3B Black Triangle. The TR3B Black Triangle. And again, if you're new, the reason why I'm wearing glasses is because I don't really get a lot of excuses to wear these glasses. I feel like I should get my money out of them. So I'm going to wear them whenever because I think they're badass. They're Ray-Bans as well. Oof, they look good. And it's never sunny here in the wintertime. So there you go. But also because Friedwardt Winterberg is no longer with us, and yet another Black Project engineer has passed away without me ever meeting them, and they went to their grave without revealing any of their secrets. So, we got to make sense of this. And the thing is, this guy probably knew that this technology is like the end of the world. This is probably important to say more often, but this 0-point energy technology is the end of the world. So make peace with everything that you care about because it's coming out. So, and I think a lot of these guys kept it secret for that reason because they knew this technology is doomsday. So it's a lot easier to hide the technology if you're like, yeah, it could have gave us free energy, but it could easily just wipe us off the planet, maybe wipe out our entire solar system. Because once you understand this, guys, this is the most important part, is once you understand that space is not empty and there's this 0-point energy, like everything that he was just saying in that video, once you understand that, sky's the limit. You can, this is what opens the door to this is what opens Pandora's box up. This is where you realize, oh, free energy is possible. Oh, warp drives, wormholes are possible. Like, does anyone out there really think we're ready? This is my approach. Yeah, if we die, we die. If he dies, he dies. I mean, at that point, like, we've been hiding it for so long and ruining people's lives over it for so long. That's where I'm like, okay, you know what? This was the last 239 people that we were going to ruin their lives. This was the last 239. I'm sure there was many, 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 many before that. And probably some afterwards as well, but this is the last 239 we're going to let them get away with, just teleporting people away and weird orbs and stuff like that with plasma. No more. No more. We're putting our foot down. So let's listen to some more background about Friedwardt Winterberg. Because guys, I think we found one here, like who's he's up there, I think. He's up there on the totem pole of dudes who knew a lot more than what the public really understood. Yeah, it's very moist. Very moist. Moist, moist, moist. What a word. What a word. Okay, let me just check my stuff here. Close this down. Okay, let's skip ahead to some of this stuff.
Gave a big presentation to everybody there on his idea of impact fusion, where it's this idea that you're circulating these levitating superconducting balls around in a circle, and then they slam into each other at the right moment and you get fusion. That was his main claim to fame. That was the biggest thing that he's probably going to be remembered for, is how much he contributed to different methods of fusion.
Well, okay, so we found the master of fusion now. It's like we found the master of fusion. Guy is going to be remembered because he basically made like the particle accelerator. I mean, superconductors zapping particles into each other. That's basically what the Large Hadron Collider is.
I have seen going through.
Notice none of his ways of fusion are heated up a bunch.
His papers over the last week with you, right? We have been going through, working with his daughter Astrid and her partner Jason, trying to help the family archive and organize and scan some of the valuable materials that never made it into, publication. And so I've seen a couple of big trends there. As you mentioned, one of them is fusion, like bombs, for lack of a better word, right? And there are so many different variations on that. Like,
You think I can get some of these papers? Fusion bombs? I mean, this is my steez right here, chat. This is my steez. The way to my heart is papers on fusion bombs by Friedwardt Winterberg. I'm gonna reach out to Tim Ventura, see if I can get access to some of these papers.
How to start a fusion detonation using lasers, how to start a fusion detonation.
Fusion detonation using lasers? Well, that sounds really familiar, guys. One sec. I thought I could have sworn I have this. Weird. I don't know where I have the one about the plasma from Sal. I just have this one.
Way to see
that's not the right one.
What obtained by the accelerator, a non-term for it called the electrons of the observe something called a Maxwell. Once you drive that far from equilibrium at a particular vibrational frequency, you can induce extremely high energy densities.
So that's the rub right there. I have another clip somewhere. I must have called it something else that was of Tim Ventura talking to Sal, and Sal saying to use attosecond lasers and femtosecond lasers to produce balls of plasma.
With electron beams, things along those lines. That is one path of his research that is throughout his career, right? It's there. Oh
yeah, and somebody pointed out too, yes, he was working on GPS. He was working on GPS as well. So he was working on GPS stuff, which is really interesting. It seems like a lot of people connected to GPS understand gravity really well. Sooty, thank you very much. Appreciate you. The technology wasn't as cheap as the lives, those 239 souls on board. Yeah, I don't think human nature overall has evolved enough yet to handle ZPE. You might be right, Sooty. You might be right. I don't know. Just don't know.
Even though he didn't seem to be very weapons focused, it's something that was part, I guess, of his professional life. Another part of his life that I thought was very interesting was he was fascinated by UFOs. And Astrid has said he went back and forth on it, I think, to some degree, right? And so she isn't completely sure what his opinion was, but one of the things that you found was a letter to Edward Teller about a book he was working on, where he pointed out the UFO in a photo that Teller had sent him, right? So this was not only something that was an interest for him, and he had dozens of magazines, maybe hundreds of newsletters from J. Allen Hynek's organization, correspondence with Hynek and others. This appears to be
he was connected to Hynek, the Project Blue Book guy. He was obsessed with UFOs. Chat, I don't know, chat. Spider Sense is telling me here, guys, there is something going on with this Winterberg guy. I think you guys are finding out in real time. We're discovering this secret scientist that was connected to UFO stuff that nobody really knows about. Nobody's really done any stuff on him. Now let's skip ahead. I don't want to be up all night here. Let's go to this part about the plasma sheath. Somewhere here they talk about the plasma sheath. I'm just gonna make sure we get the right timestamp.
Ended up improving upon that idea significantly. He figured out that you could use a plasma sheath on the surface of this curved deflector dish that creates a magnetically repulsive field that protects the dish from getting damaged during each of these explosions. He also figured out that you can use much smaller explosions more rapidly. Rather than one bomb located, every couple 100,000 kilometers, here you could have a string of these little things already on board, and you could just detonate them repeatedly underneath the craft. And so this craft could have a half sphere deflector dish underneath it and use these micro explosions to levitate it and to allow it to operate in very thin atmosphere or space conditions.
Well, so this takes us into the third major aspect of his work that
So he was working on plasma sheaths, which we've already connected to spy plane technology. Here's the thing, guys. We've pretty much figured out what the secret sauce is, just from open source information. I mean, I'm saying with like very high degree of certainty. Vegas wouldn't even take betting odds because they just think we're cheating. It's all been, this plasma stuff has been the secret to all of the secret sauce, the secret energy sources, secret anti-gravity stuff, secret communication methods, secret detectors. All of these things, it's related to plasma and gravity manipulation, manipulating ripples in the ether. Ripples in the ether. That's what they've been hiding this whole time. Did we get it from aliens? Did we get it from ancient civilizations or whatever other shit? I don't know. Probably AI is going to take over the world. Just probably being realistic about it. AI is probably going to take over the world. You're all cooked. We're all cooked. The best we can do is appreciate the time we have on this planet. And I'm going to make a plasma bomb. I'm going to try to get those scientific papers, figure out how we make a fusion bomb or whatever the cool thing is these days that the kids are making. And that'll be my dead man switch. That'll be my dead man switch. And for anybody watching, this is all satire. We're just joking. So funny.
I saw, which was basically fusion-based propulsion, right? And there were all manner of ideas that he explored.
I mean, if the Feds say anything, this is all fake, obviously. Obviously, the only science that's real is what you read in academia, right? Obviously. That's my defense. If the Feds come at me, I'll say, and obviously none of this is real. Do you see Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about this? No. So obviously it's not real. Neil deGrasse Tyson knows all the best scientists like Anthony Fauci and Bill Nye the Science Guy and Dr. Bill Gates. NGT knows all the best ones. If he doesn't say it, then, obviously there's no such thing as a fusion bomb. It's just made up mumbo jumbo science. That's why I'm going to make one. I love fake science.
There. And again, everything relating to how to more efficiently and effectively do fusion-related propulsion. I mean, he just went through idea after idea after idea. And so that connected him with Dr. Robert L. Forward, his interest in SETI connected.
Wait, what? Did you just say Robert Forward? Winterberg was connected to Robert Forward? Okay. Chat now. There's smoke, there's fire happening here. So Winterberg's connected to Hal Puthoff. We know because he wrote one of these dirds. We realize now he was also connected to Edward Teller. He's connected to the Manhattan Project. He's also connected to Robert Forward, the guy that I keep referencing on all the podcasts, saying that Robert Forward is the one that figured out that we can use the Casimir effect to extract energy. That Robert Forward, 1984 Robert Forward. If you guys have been watching my podcast, I pretty much mentioned Robert Forward on every single one. And people probably wonder, who's the Robert Forward guy this guy's always mentioning? He's the one that figured out the Casimir effect can extract energy from the vacuum, from the ether. And so now we're learning that Winterberg was also buddies with him? Okay. We're starting to now literally be able to build a net of who are all the scientists that know about the UFO technology or whatever you want to call it, Atlantean technology. Maybe it's secret Atlantean technology, guys. Anyway, my money's still on AI is already taking over the world. AI is going to cook us. That's where my money's at. But you know what? Maybe Atlanteans, maybe, you know, the xeno-reptilians or whatever. I don't know. I don't know where they come from. I don't care. Maybe the jellyfish. Maybe it's jellyfish that figured out this ZPE tech. Who knows?
Connected him with Carl Sagan. You know, again, he had this,
Sagan too?
I guess, diversity of interests that were focused around.
How did nobody know who this dude was? He also knew Carl Sagan?
Future spaceflight. And, you know, along with that, it was, what will we encounter? What kind of beings are out there, and are they already here, right? So, again,
okay. Let's go to the next part. 18 minutes.
With UFO encounters of one kind or another, you don't see such a high number of repeated incursions into the same area by the same craft, right?
Yeah.
And so because of that particular incident, there's a lot of other incidents with flying triangles out there, but that particular incident really gets me going. And the reason why is because that looks like a military operation more than just about any other thing that I've seen. So if it's a military operation, that suggests that it may have been a man-made craft that somebody at some point had recently made. And for that time in history, 1989 to 1990, the Cold War was like starting to wind down, but there was a lot of tensions going on because a lot of people.
Obviously, the link I went to was not the right one, but that's fine. That's fine. I'm just gonna let this play out. So there was a lot of tensions, and the next thing's coming up.
People in the Soviets and a lot of people in the U.S. government, neither one necessarily wanted it to end or thought it was safe for it to end. So this could have been a show of force of one kind or another, in order to make it so that it would end peacefully without the exchange of nukes, like everybody expected the Cold War to end. So from that incident, I got really focused on this flying triangle. I started trying to find out anybody that could have been associated to the development of this. One person's name that seemed to keep coming up over and over and over was Dr. Winterberg. And the reason why is because of his fusion work. When you look at how this craft seems to operate, it becomes very readily apparent that it's utilizing fusion.
What? Wow. Guys, I might need to do another X Space with Jake Chansley soon. It becomes readily apparent. So if you don't know, they're talking about the TR-3B, the flying triangle. I have another spicy take for you. I think we're going to find out that the TR-3B is just 3 orbs of plasma, that there's nothing inside of it, that really the TR-3B, people were just imagining there was something, a black triangle, because it looked like it was in a triangle formation. So the mind was just producing something between it. I think we're going to find out there was nothing ever between it. So he was looking for people that were connected to the black triangle. And he kept coming back to Winterberg because he was convinced that fusion was how it was happening. Now we're starting to see why the suppression of cold fusion. So why did cold fusion get suppressed? People say, Ashton, why you're saying all this crazy stuff? You're saying that free energy is real and that we can make warp drives and that cold fusion is suppressed. Yes. All of these technologies use the exact same physics based on 0-point energy. All of them do. So of course, like even though the Pons and Fleischmann experiment wasn't even not even close to the best way to do cold fusion, just the fact that they were even close meant that it had to be suppressed, discredited, destroyed in the public eye. We can't have anybody looking into this fusion and other ways to produce fusion, because fusion and plasma is tapping into the 0 point energy. So the thing that we're trying to keep secret is that this plasma, these cold plasmas produced by high-powered pulse lasers, are actually just ripping right through to the 0 point energy, possibly producing a miniature black hole. And we really need to understand this, because I don't want anyone to destroy the universe with a black hole. So, like, literally, quite literally, guys, we're on the part now where, you know how everybody was freaking out about CERN and the particle collider making a black hole? Like, we might actually make one now. Like, it's not just an empty threat or a concern that conspiracy theorists jump to. Like, this technology, this means attosecond lasers, people might be able to produce like a consistent black hole to become self-sustaining. The only question is, like, where is the cutoff point where it becomes so big that, okay, now we're all just done? That's really the only limit. So, yeah, we're cooked.
Very readily apparent. Even more so on the center underside of all of these flying triangles, they have the same exact deflector dish with the same exact oscillating plasma explosion that Dr. Winterberg talks about in his Project Daedalus stuff. So all of these arrows keep pointing back to Dr. Winterberg. So this week, as we've gone through and we've archived his stuff, we've looked through every single thing the guy has, which is a lot.
Tons.
Literal tons of papers. We didn't find a single literal smoking gun on, here's this craft that I worked on, that, right? Throughout the years, based upon his letters and his other correspondences he had, I can see that his documents have been cleaned up multiple times.
Yeah.
Especially once he lost his Q clearance in 1974. When that happened, a lot of the stuff got cleaned up. And then in the later 70s, it happened again. And then in the...
Okay, so let's move to the next part here. So he might be connected to UFO stuff.
Right, because this had been one of the things we'd wondered about. When Astrid had talked about Area 51, your thought was maybe she got confused and he meant Los Alamos. And so we followed up with her on that. And she said, no, he absolutely said Area 51. He was talking about UFOs. He said it in a joking way. He's like, Astrid, I'm going. Wouldn't you like to go with me? You know, so that at least was what he told her, right?
He literally went to Area 51. Okay, so he literally went to Area 51. Just put that, you know, in the notes. Literally went to Area 51.
And again, it could have been Area 11, I guess, which is, you know, fusion, fission, research, testing areas that are in a different part of the Nevada test range.
Yep, there's a lot of underground nuclear testing that goes on in the entire Nevada test site. And Area 11 is one of those areas where they have these underground tests going, which is part of the reason why they were looking into how is the radiation from these tests leaking into the groundwater. One of Dr. Winterberg's hobbies prior to this was geology and understanding how rocks stratify and how they crumble under certain loads and everything. And part of that is because he helped work on this idea of tunneling using these nuclear explosions. One paper that I'd seen a couple of years ago shows that he came up or helped design this idea for another deflector dish for underground nuclear tunneling. What would happen is you would explode this directional nuke, and half of the explosion would go one way and half would go the other way. And he used this reflector that would reflect all the X-rays back in the direction that you want it to go. And so you could tunnel very, very far, very, very.
So he was doing some crazy stuff. Not bad. Okay. Then down here, it talks about the risk of the technology.
Like idyllic views on how we were going to be able to harness all of these different power sources for the betterment of mankind, right? Rather than use it for its destructive purposes, use it for its constructive purposes. We've seen fusion or fission reactors crop up here and there. There hasn't been a new one for a very long time because the costs associated with it are so heavy.
Yeah.
The only way that we're going to be able to see energy independence and to remove ourselves from fossil fuels, as well as from the potential for nuclear fallout when you have another Fukushima-like event or another 3 Mile Island-like event where these fission reactors melt down. The only way we're going to be able to get away from that is with fusion, nuclear fusion. And I think Dr. Winterberg figured that out a long time ago, that the answer is fusion. Part of the problem, though, is that fusion research is so closely tied with all of this super classified stuff that you can't necessarily release the advancements that your team has made without risk of enabling your country's enemies to be able to develop weapons from that.
Wow. You just heard it. What is the secret? What's the UFO secret? It's the energy source. How do you tap into the energy source? Cold fusion. What's the secret? Fusion. Look at it like this, guys. I'll make it simple. We've had no advancements in fusion. Why have we had no advancements in fusion? Because we've already figured it out and it's classified. Anybody that figures it out, sorry. We're literally wasting billions of dollars every year on hot fusion, which is a total scam when we've already figured it out. Already figured it out.
It's quite an unfortunate thing, and Dr. Winterberg was fully aware of how unfortunate this was, that you couldn't declassify this type of fusion research, especially when the advancements that he was making were leaps and bounds beyond anything anyone had ever come up with before. Initially, our ability to attain fusion was next to zero, and thanks to Dr. Winterberg, he made orders of magnitudes increases in the viability of the potential for this to become a thing.
Okay. That's where you know for sure he wrote classified papers on how to stabilize plasma fusion, right? And he was doing it on cold fusion, not hot fusion. Those guys figured out cold fusion a long time ago. They figured out cold fusion a long time ago. They knew it had nothing to do. Don't worry about temperature. It's stupid. It's honestly just stupid. Just look at magnetic fields and using like inertial mass confinement. They had figured it out, and they knew the dangers, though, as well. They knew the dangers. Like, they realized that this is an unlimited energy source, and they realized that somebody's going to wipe out the planet with this. So they knew the dangers. Everybody else should know the dangers as well. All of you should know the dangers. And you should know, hey, a lot of people say, Ashton, well, if you know the dangers, why are you just spilling the beans out there to everybody? Well, because we teleported 239 people on March 8th, 2014. Teleported 239 people with some orbs, some plasma orbs that were showing cold fusion. And because these leaked on the internet, then I saw them in the year 2023. And now everybody's going to know the truth. That's the answer. Take it or leave it. That's the answer. Okay. Problem is that we're depending on other humans. We're just as small-minded, as corrupt as the rest of us. Yeah. To tell the species that we aren't ready while they exploit this technology as they please. Aristotle, couldn't have said it better myself. Just seems like delaying the inevitable. By the current logic, we either get the secret sauce and blow ourselves up, or we keep fighting for scarce resources and blow ourselves up. Tomato, tomato. Humanity's cooked. Humanity's cooked, chat. Humanity is cooked. That's probably the moral of the story for humanity. We were not a good enough species to make it past the Great Filter. Let's just start writing the obituary for humanity right now. Not smart enough to figure out 0-point energy. The moment we figured it out, blew ourselves up, annihilated ourselves, reset ourselves back to zero. I don't know. Maybe one of you guys can come up with a better answer. Maybe we need to make a breakaway civilization of only the smart elite people, only the 4 orbs people, and we need to just take this technology and just get the hell out of here. We'll go find ourselves a new Earth where we don't let people annihilate the planet, and we'll just chill by ourselves. We'll, maybe somewhere in Zeta Reticuli, or maybe somewhere in the Andromeda Galaxy, just somewhere far away from here.
Whether or not we actually achieved it in the SDI era is a little bit questionable. I haven't seen a smoking gun yet, other than the flying triangles, maybe. And we're always told that nuclear fusion is another 10 to 30 years out, just repeatedly. It's always that much far out. Well, part of the problem, why that's so far out, is because there's a lot of research out there, not just by Dr. Winterberg, but by other government-related scientists as well, who made such great strides, and those strides aren't recognized because it's classified.
It's like, what strides would they be talking about, guys? Like, okay, let's just go to the facts. Winterberg worked on fusion research. Everybody's saying he made all these strides in fusion research. Meanwhile, on the public perspective, fusion research is still another decades away. Still. Where are the strides? Where are the fusion strides? It's pretty damn obvious when you think about it. Oh, we figured out cold fusion. We figured out the fusion that actually works. Not the fake one that we're pushing to the public. We figured out real fusion. We've been hiding it. We've been like warmongering off of it, profiting off of it, and we've turned it into magical technology now. Now we've turned it into some straight up magical technology. Maybe aliens have it. Maybe whatever else. Maybe the Bigfoot people have it. You know, Bigfoot could be real. Who knows, man? Be open-minded.
Classified.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and again, he explored so many different nuts and bolts aspects of it, right? Can you initiate it this way? Can you shield it that way? Can you control it this way? So a lot of it was, it's not just, can we build a bomb? Can we build it bigger? It's more like, how can we utilize this and harness it and more efficiently control this for the betterment of mankind, as well as exploring space. Again, this was a consistent theme. This was one of his big themes, was we can use this to get to other planets, other solar systems, start to explore our galaxy, right?
And on another note on...
See, I knew that deep at his heart, he was going to be a good guy. He wanted to explore the galaxy. He didn't want to make weapons out of this stuff. None of the best scientists do. It's the militaries and the governments that make them make all the weapons. Sooty again with the big, is that Australian dollars, Sooty? I heard Australian people call women Sheila everywhere. Maybe we'll just call Sooty Sheila from now on. Is that Australian dollars? I don't know. Who cares? I disagree. Humanity overall is corrupt. Many have this morality and maturity to use ZPE productively and safely. But each person needs to think honestly about this question. Individual accountability is necessary. We have an optimist. We have an optimist. Well, thank you for being here, Sooty. I appreciate you.
On his fusion research, Dr. Winterberg passed away in 2022.
This is why we have the glasses. He passed away in 2022. Rest in peace to a goat. Hidden goat, chat. We found a hidden goat that nobody else knew about, that nobody's done any documentaries about yet. Now watch, we're going to watch all the Jesse Michaels and Jay Project Unity. Everybody's going to make videos about him now that Ashton discovered him. That's fine. You know what? I hope they do, because he deserves more recognition.
In 2018 to 2020, he had signed an NDA for Lockheed so that he could help Lockheed with their fusion reactor design that they had been working on. Now,
well, that's one to note down. What was that? 2019 to 2020 helped Lockheed Martin with their fusion reactor. That seems very relevant.
There's a lot of different versions of fusion reactors out there, and a number of them employ Dr. Winterberg's ideas. But Lockheed had a slightly different model that they were working on, and they asked Dr. Winterberg to come in as a consultant. And he had to sign all the papers, and I won't disclose, exactly what you're doing here. But the paper that he wrote up after the fact on what he did, because he wanted everybody to know what he did, that paper is publicly available. And you can see the kinds of major lateral thinking that he was still capable of at ages like 94, 95 years old. He was still with it enough that he was able to give Lockheed a totally different method than they'd been trying before. It doesn't appear as though Lockheed has actually employed his ideas, though they might reconsider doing so. But part of his idea was, instead of using a single tokamak-like reactor where you're spinning the plasma around, that if you actually have two reactors stacked atop each other and you counter-rotate the beams like that, well, you can utilize the fields produced by that to help balance out these beams, because chaos and nonlinearities abound in fusion systems. These things do not want to stay stable, and that's part of the biggest problem, is you can't have stable fusion. You can do it for a nanosecond, but you can't do it for, hours. Well, when you stack them on top of each other like that, those instabilities start to even out a little bit better. In addition, there might be some other interesting side effects that come from that, which Dr. Winterberg hints to in some of his papers. Some other.
Whoa, well, we just hit the meat and the potatoes of tonight, chat. Wow. So what do you think the other effects are that come with this fusion confinement? I have a feeling he's going to say anti-gravity in a second.
Other papers written by the Air Force Research and others are suggesting that there may very well be anti-gravity properties.
And boom goes the dynamite. Boom, shakalaka, 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 shakalaka. He's on fire. Boom. Of course, it's anti-gravity. It's never just plasma. Plasma, anti-gravity, using counter-rotating vortices. What does that remind you of? What does counter-rotating vortices remind you of, chat? Boom, boom, boom. We're just blowing up. Boom, Salvatore Pais's patent. Magnetically confined fusion reactant by Navy engineer Dr. Salvatore Pais. There it is. Wow, look at that. Counter-rotating magnetic fields. Jesus, man. Imagine being Salvatore Pais and all these like Project Paperclip scientists, dudes that were working on fusion. Like, he knows Winterberg. He's going to know who Winterberg's all about. Saying all this stuff, and you've got these patents out there, and then you've got idiots going, these patents are disinformation to the Chinese. We're trying to disinform the Chinese with all these UFO patents. No wonder Sal's so pissed off. If I was Sal, I would be pissed off too, because people just don't know who any of these scientists and engineers are. They don't understand the concepts. But anybody that listen to Winterberg, you're going to look at this and you're going to take it very seriously. You're going to wonder, like, did they build this? Has this been built? Has this been built yet, chat? Okay. Well, let's let that play out.
In fact, in that Lockheed paper by Dr. Winterberg, he talks about negative masses occurring in the center of the toroids. It's possible, and this is pure speculation, but it's possible, based upon what I've seen from Dr. Winterberg's work, that when you crack the nut of fusion, you are simultaneously able to crack the nut of anti-gravity and propulsion.
Yes. Yes. Clip it. I want it. I love it. I need more of it. It seems that when you crack fusion, you crack anti-gravity. Boom. I love it. You know what I love most about this? Nobody else is saying it. Nobody else is saying it out there. There's no one to compete with. Nobody expected this. Nobody was ready for it. Only a few people like Robert Temple and Joseph P. Farrell have even been talking about plasma at all. And that's fine. That's fine. I'll stand on the podium with them. But nobody's really been speaking about it scientifically in terms of how it produces anti-gravitic effects. Like, no one. Researching it, what have you, finding the Ken shoulders. We have nailed it. We are over the target, and we are just dropping bombs on them. We're discovering all their secrets. They've clearly figured it out from plasma. They've figured out cold fusion. They figured out anti-gravity propulsion. And it's all about manipulating the ether, manipulating space-time. Space-time is not empty. Space-time is not empty. That's it. Honestly, yes, APEC has been doing it. APEC has been doing it, which kind of weirds me out on how APEC didn't really figure it out yet. But it doesn't get a lot of views. Like these videos we're watching here are basically, they're from the APEC channel, I think. It's got like 500 views on these. I should probably link them in the chat. It's like 500 views on these videos. They're my favorite. The ones with no views on them, where nobody's watched it, those are my favorite. Because the other thing I want to teach you guys is like how it's just hidden in plain sight. Like none of you knew who Friedwardt Winterberg was before you watched this stream. And now you're like, oh, this guy's like connected to this UFO technology. He was obsessed with it. He was doing like plasma research and confinement research that nobody is not publicly available still classified to this day.
Which might help explain part of the reason why it has remained so secret. Because anti-gravity technology, for the longest time, has remained very, very secret. If any advancements have been made over the last 80 years by the US government or other governments, we haven't seen the smoking gun on, you know, how exactly such systems operate. We have a lot of speculations, but that smoking gun has never quite been there.
Well, this takes me to his students and continuing that culture of specialized knowledge, right? One of the things you had wondered about is whether or not one or more of his students may have gone on to develop the TR-3B. Do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to skip ahead of this part. Okay, then there's only a couple more parts. Okay, yeah, we got these other two parts. So actually the last part's about the ether hypothesis.
Kind of running through a lot of the major aspects of this. What
means with this man, because he had a very strong sense of justice.
I found most surprising was actually that book right behind you, the Planck Aether hypothesis. I had no idea that he had developed a completely independent theory of physics. I think that's absolutely remarkable. And one of the things that seems the most remarkable about it was he came from such a rigorous school of physics. And like, as you've said, folks like that, they tend to make up their mind and staunchly defend their opinions and, you know, and what they come up with, right? And in his case, he branched out and he created something that is completely new. Now, neither one of us are physicists, but I mean, I know that you've gone through this. Do you think that there's validity there to it?
I think it would be better for me to point at the other physicists who think that there might be validity there. So he had been coming up with this idea of the Planck ether and negative masses and something called rotons, which I'm not going to get into, but he'd been developing this theory for so long. Robert L. Ford, who in the world of alternative propulsion is a big name that a lot of people recognize. There's a lot of correspondence between Robert Ford and Dr. Winterberg, especially surrounding this idea. Dr. Ford was very interested in this idea. He never seemed to commit one way or another toward.
Okay, wow. Okay, next guy we're looking into is Robert Forward. Robert Forward's next on the list. Robert Forward, your next scientist to be exposed. I wonder if he's still alive. He's probably not alive, huh? Robert L. Forward. American physicist. Yep, died in 2002. Of course he did. Damn it. None of them are still alive anymore. Yeah, he's next on the list. So they were communicating and they were looking at anti-gravity. They were looking at plasma research. They were looking at energy generation. Robert Forward was looking at the Casimir effect. Man, if this was all publicly available, imagine what these defense contractors have hidden. No, it totally makes sense to me that they've either reverse engineered this or they've figured this out and they've just gotten so far beyond where we're at. So this is good. Cold fusion seeks to replicate the fusion of atomic nuclei at room temperature, overcoming the Coulomb repulsion. Yes. It turns out that the Casimir attraction can overcome the Coulomb repulsion. Same concept as making a bubble, a wormhole. Just electromagnetism. Pretty wild.
Whether it was valid, but he seemed to always want to know more about it. He was very, very interested in it. And he wasn't alone. He wasn't the only one. Dr. Winterberg sent out this idea to a lot of different people. And it seems like the idea never quite gained traction as it could have had more people looked at it. I think Astrid was telling me yesterday that like 5 people bought this book last year, right? And altogether, you know, there's probably only been 50 copies ever sold or something like that.
Wow,
like not
really?
a lot of copies of this have made it out there.
Well, when you have a completely independent theory like that, and I've received several of these from different people, right? And one of the challenges is you really have to dig in to understand it, to tell if it even has the potential to be real. And so
50 copies. This is the holy shit, chat. 50 copies. That's the total number of books he sold for the Planck Aether hypothesis. How many copies? Neil deGrasse Tyson's probably sold some garbage book before. Probably sold 1 million copies. This is the problem. 50 copies of the Planck Aether hypothesis. That's all we've sold out there ever. 5 last year. I need a copy. I'm buying a copy. Is it on Amazon? Jesus, chat. Here it is. It's not available. No more stock, chat. We need to fix this. This book's probably going to be worth like $1,000. If you're like into collectibles, is the secret of the universe hidden in negative masses? Yeah, bro. Yes. That's going to be a collectible. I want to get my hands on that as well. Probably I should buy these books before I do live streams on them at this point, because now I can imagine this is going to be like a whole thing where I'm going to battle with people over it. Okay, so here's let's finish up this live stream. This is, I think, the last part.
You know, regardless of his pedigree, the problem is most of the people he was sending this to probably simply didn't have the time to go through it.
The time or the chops to be able to adequately understand his theory. You have to have a very deep knowledge of a very niche field of physics, which a lot of people don't have.
Physics and electrical engineering?
I think that he had to refine this theory over so many decades because it was such a niche. He had to constantly go and ask for help from all these other physicists to take his idea, review it, tell him what he's got wrong. And that iterative process of refinement, he did for decades and decades and decades before he felt like it was refined well enough to share publicly through the form of a book.
So one of the other things that I found incredibly surprising was how many of the names in his correspondence were people that I had met at the ISNPS STAFE conference. And I guess that shouldn't be a surprise, for the listeners, I guess. That's the Institute of Space and Nuclear Power Study Space. Forces this idea of community, right? So
from Dr. Pais.
That he had reviewed some of the papers by people in our own propulsion community, right? So again, a small group of people who seem to be well familiar with each other's ideas.
Yeah, even just this morning, as I continue to go through the massive amount of papers that we've gotten over this last week, I was seeing that he had been reviewing papers by Dr. Paul Murat. I'd seen that he'd been reviewing papers from Dr. Pais. He'd been reviewing.
I'll take a Yahtzee on that. He was reviewing papers by Paul Murad, right? Is it Paul Murad? M-U-R-A-D. Well, Phil, whatever Murad's first name is. He was reading papers by Murad and Pais. So there you go. So we've definitely connected them together, because if you're not familiar, Murad and Mead are two of the people in the Air Force research labs that are like project managers that were pushing out all this research for the Air Force. And Pais, obviously, you know, from the Navy. So yeah, well. Winterberg was reading papers by Pais. Well, chat. Holy bazinga. What a small world it is in the Black Project engineer realm. This is why I can't understand how people haven't figured this all out yet. Like, wow. We just find out that he's reading all the same papers that we're reading. Murad, Mead, they're talking about like ball lightning study. Like, in fact, I think the ball lightning study has them on there. Hold on. Here it is. Let me see the ball lightning one has them on there or not. Oh, no, this one's Franklin Mead. Yeah, I think it's Paul Murad and Franklin Mead are the two guys in the Air Force research.
A lot of these alternative propulsion ideas that have continued to come out even after he had retired. He was still completely fascinated by this idea of alternative propulsion. And I don't think that fascination ever went away.
Jack Sarfati, I saw several of Jack's papers in there as well.
Yep.
You know, yeah. And again, that's just on the propulsion side of things. And then there were so many papers that he reviewed. So one thing I think that I should mention, and again, you and I saw this, but it's worth mentioning for anybody who watches, so much of those boxes was full of photocopies of magazine articles or you know, journals, scientific papers. You know, I mean, I'm just trying to think of all the different places, textbooks where he would photocopy something and put it in, and then he would add.
Okay, so that's enough. I do want to show one other video, just because whatever. You get a little extra bonus today. How ion propulsion works. I want to show this video because if you want to understand what we're talking about, you need to understand ions, positively charged ions, negatively charged electrons. This is how you produce a plasma. You strip the electrons from the molecules, from the atoms. You produce ions.
Folks, I'm going to explain. The basic idea is that you put a sharp-edged object near a smooth-edged object. Both usually are electrically conductive materials. You then put a high voltage across them, like I do with my homemade high-voltage power supply. In my Enterprise, each nacelle had its own ion propulsion engine. I'd put some sharp-ended wires inside one end and a rounded-edged cylinder made of aluminum foil inside the other end. The rounded-edged met the requirement of using something smooth. In a lifter, very thin wire is strung up here, usually 30 gauge. The wire's thinness provides the sharp edge. The smooth object is this aluminum foil here, with its top edge folded over some balsa wood to make it nice and round or smooth. Why is having one object sharp and the other smooth important? Let's look at how it works. As I said, you apply a high voltage across them using a high voltage power supply. Let's say these are the atoms that make up the materials. Each atom has a bunch of positive protons and a bunch of negative electrons. They have the same number of both, so the positives balance out the negatives. In that case, we say the atoms are neutral. Let's also say we connect the sharp object to the power supply's positive terminal and the...
Okay, if you don't understand what we're talking about here, your homework is you need to go study electrical engineering. So everything's currently stable. It's neutralized. Positive charges and negative charges are equal. We're going to connect this battery or capacitor. It's going to mess that all up. And then what's going to happen is it's going to cause there to be a plasma field that's going to jump the gap in the air.
Smooth object to the power supply's negative terminal. But we could have done it the other way instead. Both ways work. Since we connected the sharp object to the power supply's positive, when we turn it on, the electrons from the atoms are pulled away, leaving the atoms with more positive protons than negative electrons. The atoms are now positively charged. Similarly, since we connected the smooth object to the power supply's negative, extra electrons are sent to the smooth object. There are now more negative electrons overall than positive protons, so that side is negatively charged. To make it simple,
okay, so you get it. So the left side's positively charged, and the right side's negatively charged. Boom, easy.
We'll show only the unbalanced or extra charges. We'll also make them a little bigger, so they're easier to see. Notice that there are the same number of charges on both sides. More importantly, notice that they are packed more closely together on the sharp object than they are on the smooth object. There's something called an electric field between the two sides. We can visualize this electric field by drawing lines between each pair of charges. In real life, there aren't any lines, but it helps for visualization. The closeness or density of the lines says how strong the electric field is. The farther apart they are, like here, the weaker the electric field is. The closer they are together, like here, the stronger the electric field is. It's the closeness of charges on the sharp object that make the electric field strong here. That's why we use a sharp object in the first place, to get that strong electric field there. But there are other atoms involved too, the atoms in the air between. Those atoms also contain positive protons and negative electrons. The electric field is so strong here that it can pull electrons from an atom. The direction the electron moves is determined by the polarity of the charges. Unlike charges attract each other, so the negative electron is attracted towards the positively charged object. Meanwhile, like charges repel each other, so the negative electron is repelled from the negatively charged object. That leaves the atom with more positive protons than negative electrons, so it's positively charged. An atom with an unbalanced charge like this is called an ion. It's repelled from the positively charged object and attracted toward the negatively charged one. So far, nothing here would have caused any propulsion. All forces in both directions balance.
So we're already seeing the beginning of it here. Pay attention. I know it's late. You're seeing the atoms. What are those atoms in the air? What are these atoms in the air? Well, one of them could be hydrogen. There's hydrogen in the air, also known as one of the elements of water. So if you can rip an electron from a hydrogen atom with what you're seeing here is just some current, then you're going to have the electrons get ripped off close to the positively charged side, and you get left with this guy in the middle here, a positively charged ion, being pulled towards the negative charge side on the right. That side.
Balanced out, and there was no outside influence. Let's say you're wearing rollerblades. Removing the electron from the atom would be like holding a piece of bread in your hands in front of you and tearing it apart. That doesn't cause you to move sideways in either direction. When the electron arrives at the sharp object, that doesn't result in any propulsion either, since it's the electric field from the objects that put it there. Again, if you're wearing rollerblades and you have a ball in your hand and push yourself with it, that won't cause you to move, since you're doing the pushing and you're the one being pushed. But there's another player involved here. In this air here, where the electric field is weaker, there are more atoms with equal number of protons and electrons, what are called neutral atoms. Since they're neutral, they don't interact with the electric field. They're not connected to our charged objects in any useful way. When one of the positive ions that we created collides with one of the neutral atoms, sometimes we'll have enough energy to knock an electron free. The negative electron will be attracted to the positively charged object, and we'll have another positive ion moving in this direction. More often, though, the collision doesn't have enough energy to knock an electron free, and instead it will just be slowed down, maybe even change direction. Now, you might think that that shouldn't affect our objects, since the ions are not connected to our objects. But they are. The positive ion was moving in this direction because it was being attracted by the negatively charged smooth object, and repelled by the positively charged sharp object. They're connected by the electric field. It's as if there are arms holding the ion and moving it. When the ion collides with the neutral atom, the ion experiences a force in this direction, and drags the charged objects along with it. That's as if this time you held a ball in your hand and used it to push against a chair that you're not connected to. This time you do move. The chair is like our neutral atom. It's not.
So now we're already seeing how you can manipulate electrostatics to produce propulsion. We're seeing the core concepts of it right here. Now imagine that the plasma itself is like these red and green balls here, but just a lot of them, a supercharged amount of them. That's how we produce energy. That's a ball of lightning. Now, though, we're saying that we can manipulate our ball of energy. If we manipulate the positive and negative poles, we can manipulate our ball of energy. We can move it around in a direction we want to move it. And if it's it has anti-gravity properties, if it has no mass, it can just move around in any direction. And all we have to do is potentially change the orientation or the spin of the object. Why is this important? This is important because in the MH370 video, that's what they're doing. Now, this version doesn't show it very well, but you can see the heat signature spinning in this video at the same time as the orbs are spinning around the plane. I don't think that's coincidental. I think there's a high likelihood the spin of the orb is relational to the direction of travel. That might be why we see the orbs change their heat signature. Now, I'm going to show you that same clip, but I'm going to show it to you in color so you can see. So see the heat signature? It's fluid, it's yellow, and then it changes to blue here. And then when it zooms in as well, I can't tell if the heat signature is related to the direction of travel or not. When you see this heat signature spinning around like that. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in the forward direction. It could be some other angle relative to the heat signature, but anyway, it's really interesting. Okay, let's finish this up.
Not a part of the system. So the whole device moves in this direction, in the direction of the sharp object. You You can see that in the Enterprise model, where the smooth aluminum cylinder is at this end of the nacelle, and the sharp-ended wires are at this end. The Enterprise moves in this direction, the direction of the sharp-ended wires. The same applies to the lifter. The smooth topped aluminum foil is here, and the sharp, thin wire is here. The lifter moves up in the direction of the sharp, thin wire. Some of those neutral atoms will collide with other ones, and the overall direction will become pretty random, and end up as heat. But many will also continue moving in this direction, or may collide with others which will move in that direction.
Okay, well, that's enough of that. So basically, the reason why I was showing you this is what you just saw there with the Byfield-Brown effect, anti-gravity. What they've done is they've figured out with plasma, they can control this movement to an extreme level of precision. And if you can control this circuit you just saw here with that level of precision, then you can make an orb of plasma that can move around freely throughout three-dimensional space. And I have now strongly believed that Winterberg knew probably how to stabilize the plasma. And I think he would have known that these balls of plasma are legit and that they can be drones, and probably even knew what the energy source was, or in terms of, God, that's not what I want to say. He knew they could be used as an energy source. He knew they could be used as an energy source. So once again, okay, I already hit this one, but yes, this is another bit. This is one of the biggest questions, is that we have to figure out what our morals are if we want to prevent ourselves from destroying ourselves. And just another big thank you to Mark Scott for this massive donation, which, again, don't donate if you need your money, guys. I appreciate it, but thank you very Mark, so much for this donation. Very gracious of you. So yes, Winterberg is not alive anymore. Died in 2022. Rest in peace. The glasses to Winterberg, to his family. Let me see those papers on fusion detonation. Very curious about those papers. And you can still read about him in his scientific papers. His memory lives on. His memory will live on with us, and it will live on with everybody who keeps digging into this zero-point energy work and science and trying to get out there to the public, guys. Thank you, MH370X, for hanging out with me tonight. I'm going to put a link to the Discord in the chat before we finish, and we will get back together on Monday. If anything crazy happens, maybe we'll do an emergency stream. But otherwise, back on Monday with more science, more research, more digging into what's going on with plasma drones, guys, plasma drones. So one more donation. It looks like Sooty again. Have a restful weekend, Ashton and chat. Let's enjoy Earth while we still have it. We have to stay hopeful. In fact, I'm probably going to move one of my live streams to Sunday because the football Vikings are playing on Monday. So probably going to do our next live stream on Sunday, guys. So get excited for it. Thank you, MH370. I appreciate you guys. Have a great night. Peace out, everybody. We will talk again soon. Love you.
In the fields where the skies are wide, talking about a journey through the cosmic ride. Einstein and Thorne, they set the stage for a trip through time across the space age. Wormholes connect distant points in space, traversable paths to a far-off place. No black holes pull, no crushing weight, just a cosmic tunnel to a distant gate. Talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy, travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Bowling 777 through a wormhole flow. We're talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy, travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Bowling 777 through a wormhole flow. Exotic matter, negative energy's the key to stabilize the wormhole for you and me. Quantum vacuum squeeze so tight, creating conditions for this wondrous flight. Static fields and lasers in the lab they play. generating forces in a new kind of way. Gravitational squeezing, Casimir's force, negative zones we need to stay the course.
Talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy. Travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Boeing 777 through a wormhole flow.
Thin shell formalism, plates so fine. Spherical geometry we realign. Energy conditions that we must defy. For a stable wormhole, let's give it a try. Forces balancing the plate, creating the throat, open the gates, from Earth to the stars in a single bound, a shortcut through space profound. Engineers and dreamers hold the key to future worlds and what we could be. With science in hand, we forge ahead through the cosmic paths that we now tread.
We're talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy. Travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Boeing 777 through a wormhole flow.
From the fields to the stars, we break the chains. Understanding the universe, we make the gains. Lil Hula Crunk shines, bringing truth to light. Through his music, we'll explore the night. With wormholes and stargates, our path is clear. Explore